Muslim, the Islamic culture and the Islamic tradition and how that relates to being a military member, in particular a military psychiatrist, and give us a little background on some of the issues that we face in the world every day. So, Nidal? Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Moran. Can you guys hear me? Great. Just make sure this works. Okay, now disclaimer, this is purely for me. This doesn't represent the psychiatric department or the military or any of the armed forces, and it doesn't represent any Islamic groups or God for that matter. It represents my research and, again, the Quranic worldview as it relates to Muslims in the U.S. military.
Into the Fort Hood shootings intensify. Chairman of the Senate Homeland Security Committee, Joe Lieberman, says he will move forward on a congressional investigation to work out whether there were warning signs that Hassan was becoming a radicalized Muslim and the signs were missed or ignored. The hearings could begin as early as next week.
What makes me really mad about it is it's these tiny little mistakes, and they all added up to one massive, horrible tragedy.
We're really honored to have with us people who lost loved ones at Fort Hood. I wanted to introduce and ask you to stand if you would. First, Carrie Cahill and Kaylee Vanaker, who are two daughters of the late Michael Cahill. They traveled here today from Texas and Louisiana.
We found out about the hearing about 2 to 3 days before it. And they were like, oh yes, you can come. And we went.
Our report entitled "The Ticking Time Bomb: Counterterrorism Lessons from the U.S. Government's Failure to Prevent the Fort Hood Attack" concluded painfully that the attack at Fort Hood was preventable.
I was trying to figure out what happened that day. I wanted to know and I wanted to understand. That was it. It was that simple for me. And we listened to some experts.
It's an honor to be here. I know families are behind me. 13 people are dead and 32 are injured. I'm not going to focus on what I heard in terms of bitching and moaning from my friends. I want to talk about what we should do.
Washington wants heads on platters. You're following thousands of cases. Here's another single case. I don't care what you did on the other 2,999. 20 years in and you'll say, you're an idiot.
They failed to act effectively on the many red flags signaling that he had become a potential threat.
I remember sitting there going into that room thinking to myself, I owe it to the families to offer the best testimony I can, but I also owe it to reality to say that this ain't perfect.
We need to go from an ocean to a drop of water, because the number of people who are involved in this Islamist violent revolution is in the tens or hundreds of thousands. So to find people like Hassan, you're going to go from 10 or 20,000 people to one.
Hassan, a member of the U.S. Armed Forces, after all, was communicating with a suspected terrorist already the subject of a major FBI counterterrorism investigation.
Anwar al-Awlaki, he's an American-born al-Qaeda leader.
I, for one, was born in the U.S. and lived in the U.S. for 21 years. America was my home. However, with the American invasion of Iraq and continued U.S. aggression against Muslims, I came to the conclusion that jihad against America is binding upon myself just as it is binding on every other able Muslim. America refuses to admit that its foreign policies are the reason behind a man like Nidal Hassan, born and raised in the U.S., turning his guns against American soldiers. In order to cushion the reaction of the American public, the administration is refusing to release the emails exchanged between myself and Nidal. Another attempt of covering up the truth.
It starts relatively benignly asking Awlaki on his views on American Muslims who serve in the U.S. Army. And toward the end, he's asking questions that, in hindsight, are pretty revealing.
He apparently hailed suicide bombers and likened suicide bombers to a soldier who throws him or herself upon a grenade to save fellow soldiers.
The only thing he didn't do was wear a T-shirt saying, "I'm going to attack Fort Hood tomorrow."
I mean, let's get this straight. In the post-9/11 era, an individual is on the internet talking in broad terms to a bad guy. Are you kidding me? That's a dime a dozen.
They had field agents out of San Diego telling them, we should look at this guy. And they thought he was emailing Alan Warlocki for something else. I don't know.
A lot of what he was doing, a lot of what he was studying was perfectly consistent with his line of work.
Again, the Quranic worldview as it relates to Muslims in the U.S. military. Now, some of the adverse events that have occurred in the military, Hassan Akbar, he was a convert to Islam who decided to throw a couple grenades into his fellow soldiers' tents. So what are some hints that I might give mental health providers that might better identify a person that might be more predisposed of having conflicts?
In hindsight, it was obvious that he was having this intense internal conflict between being an Army officer and being a Muslim.
The slide says, okay, so name and practice, and the impression I got from that is to be aware of someone that actually practices their faith.
Right.
Is that what we need to tell commanders and mental health providers? Anyone that is practicing Muslim is someone we should keep an eye on and be aware of?
Yeah, absolutely sensitive issue. You're right. I'm not sure how to maneuver over that. You're right. You're absolutely right. The U.S.